Hello and welcome. My name is Lynn and I hope you are doing well today. I am going to craft with this gorgeous paper pad from the Not Too Shabby Shop Paper Pad Club of the Month. If you're not familiar, this is a fabulous club that you can sign up for, and each month you'll get two 6x6 paper pads. They are double-sided papers, and I would say not paper, more like lightweight cardstock. It's really nice quality, and each paper pad is it'll differ a little bit in the number of designs that you get and how many per sheet, but in total you'll have 24 sheets. Some might have more designs, some might have fewer designs, but you'll get more copies of each. So every month might be a little bit different, and each paper pad might be a little bit different. But these paper pads are designed a little bit differently in that they also include a pattern that is great to use as cut-aparts. They are not pre-cut, so you do have to fussy cut or die cut the images out. But they're fantastic because they coordinate beautifully with the papers. In my video today, I am going to make 5 different cards, but what I thought would be fun to do was take the same card sketch and actually adapt it to different card sizes. I think we all might have our own sort of favorite card sizes that we like to make, but if you're like me, you also occasionally like to mix things up a little bit and just throw in a different card size. So I am going to share just some of how I approach adapting a card sketch to different sizes, because I think can always feel free, even if you're participating in a sketch challenge, to change things up, and so long as your final card sort of resembles the original sketch, then I think it still qualifies for the sketch challenge. But even not, if you tend to make larger cards, for example, but most of the card sketches you come across are USA 2 in size, you might find yourself wanting to adapt. So the card that I'm working on right now is a USA 2 size card sketch that I'm working off of, originally from Kendra's card challenge. I can't remember off the top of my head which numbered sketch this is, but her sketches are great because they do provide measurements. And so if you are making a card exact to that size, you will have the measurements for all of your mats and layers. And I will leave a link to Kendra's card challenge in the description box below if you want to check that out. But conceptually, this will work for really any sketch. So to finish this off, I am going to just add a ring. I started with a couple, and then I got a little carried away and then decided to just do a full circle of Nuvo drops around this scalloped circle die cut that I have, which I like to use as a bit of an anchor point for my focal image. And that dragonfly did come from that cut apart sheet. So really, really lovely. So that's the original sketch. Now to adapt that to a mini slimline, the mini slimline dimension that I happen to use and like is 3.5 by 5.5. And the reason for that is because you can get 2 card bases from a US letter sheet of paper. With the mini slimline, the aspect ratio, so the height as compared to the width, is taller and skinnier than your USA 2 size card. So what I'm looking at when I adapt my sketches to a different card size is proportionally, I'm trying to sort of not exactly match, because I don't necessarily want to do the math to figure it out, but just what looks pleasing to the eye. And also balancing that out with what size of scraps I have left over, to be honest. So it's not that this is a science, it's definitely more of an art. but you can see that I've really emphasized the skinniness of this card or this particular card size, by making the solid color portion, which is darker, and for some people's eyes, they see that first because it's more solid, it's darker than the pattern print. And so that really does kind of emphasize the skinniness of a mini slimline. And so the other consideration that I take into account is, again, just in terms of proportions, how large of a focal image do I want? And so I will sometimes choose maybe smaller shaped dies to anchor my focal image, as compared to what I might put on, say, a 5x7 card, which will be coming up later. And so those are just a couple of things that I like to keep in mind when I'm taking a sketch and adapting it to a different card size. And of course, you can, it's all really subjective. So it's all based on what looks pleasing to your eyes. And also, sometimes maybe you're working with a focal image that works better with maybe a wider solid color section than what I have here. But I kind of like, for this particular configuration, I like that skinny solid strip of paper. Here I've got a 5x5 square card. So in terms of the ratio and the aspect ratio of this card as compared to the original, it's a little bit different because it is square, but it's still pretty well suited for using a 6x6 paper because you can still get full mats and layers from your pattern papers. Later, I'll show a full slimline card, which you might wonder, how can you line a slimline with pattern paper when your pattern paper is only 6 inches by 6 inches? So that'll be coming up a little bit later in this video as well. The other thing that I really like to use, you see me pulling this out quite a lot, and you can see all the different colors I have. I don't know for 100% certain, but I may have all of the colors that Love from Lizzie puts out in the pinstripe stickers. That's what these are. They are peel-off stickers, and the pinstripe variation is great because they are all straight edge. There are some of her peel-offs have different shaped edges. These are all straight cut, and in the pinstripe package, you get multiple different size widths. So there's like a super skinny and a medium and a third option that's the widest. But even the widest is only, I think it's probably maybe a 1/16 of an inch. These are really, really thin strips. And I find they're perfect for actually where the border of two different papers meet, whether in this case it's solid color with pattern paper, or maybe you're butting up two pattern papers together. I feel like it really cleans up that edge to have a strip of something. So if you don't have peel-offs, you can always cut a thin strip of, say, glitter paper or a specialty cardstock, just something that's a little bit different to help break up the where the two meet. And it just feels to me and to my eyes, and everybody is going to kind of look at it differently, but I feel like it just is a nice finishing touch. And so I think just about all of my cards will feature that. And when I'm working with pattern papers, I do like to, as much as possible, make the papers the star. And so I like keeping it really simple. So using solid color cardstock, maybe embossing that solid color cardstock, which is what I did for the first card, to give it some extra texture and interest, but not add too much additional color. And I feel like in that way, you can really make the paper the star. So this is a 5x7 card, and you might wonder, okay, well, how am I gonna cover the 7-inch length? And all I did, this is an easy cheat, just turn the card into landscape orientation. So even though the original sketch was designed to be portrait orientation for a side folding card, you can always just rotate your card and make it a top folding landscape card, as I've done here. And that way you still have a stretch of 6x6 pattern paper that can, fill that full height, which is now only 5 inches instead of the 7-inch height of a 5x7 card if you were to use it as a portrait card. So that's an easy trick for using your 6x6 pattern papers on larger cards. Maybe consider just turning it so that that you can still fill, if you have something like this sketch where the pattern paper is meant to go all the way from the bottom edge all the way to the top, you can still fill that by just changing the orientation of your card. And the other thing that I changed out a little bit here is I actually attached my pattern paper panel so that there's actually 2 bits of solid color showing on either side. And so technically you might consider this a different layout from the original sketch, but it's still a little bit of a spin, a little bit of a twist off of that original sketch. So, that's one of the things I really love about card sketches is that it's a great starting point to just get your creative juices flowing, but then, feeling, I always feel like I like the taking liberties with the sketch and just adapting it, and as I'm going, just change it to what works for the card that I'm making. And here, because this is a larger card, I do have a larger circle die cut to anchor my focal image. And so that way this whole area where we're going to, it's the same, roughly all of the dragonfly cutter parts they are not all identical in size, but they scale wise are pretty similar in size. But by having just a larger die cut behind it to create the foundation of our focal point, it does make it feel a little bit more substantial, and so it fills the card a little bit better, I think. And you saw earlier I was playing with actually adding several different dragonflies because I have a lot left over now, and that was all what I fussy cut out was all from one sheet. So you do get quite a lot. And if you don't want to use the cutter parts, then you can always just use the pattern on the opposite end. So now moving on to our slimline card, I do have this strip of solid color cardstock that I have embossed. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's a great way to add a little bit of interest and texture to your solid color cardstock, but not have too much busyness going on with too many additional colors. And that way the pattern paper gets to be the star of the card. And I liked the look of what I had going on with my 5x7, where there was solid color on both sides of the pattern paper. So I've sort of recreated that here as well, although I'm using really skinny strips because the slimline card, the dimensions that I make mine to, which I think it's fairly standard, but folded it's 3.5 by 8.5. And here's a quick and easy trick for extending the pattern, you can just cut another piece, and you can actually cut it smaller than the original, than what you need to actually fill the full strip. Because the idea is that, yeah, you're going to have a seam there, but I didn't actually focus on matching up the pattern to get it to repeat exactly. I just made sure that I was cutting that extra strip so that it's oriented the same way, because it is a repeating pattern, but it's not like a perfect repeat. And the reason why I don't really care that much is because I know that I am going to place this scallop circle die cut over that seam to hide it. And that's why you can actually cut a piece that is technically smaller than what you need. You can actually leave a gap in between your two sections of pattern paper. I've gone ahead and just, filled that entire section. But no one's ever going to know that this isn't a larger piece of pattern paper, because where the two pieces of pattern paper meet up, we're going to cover that. So that's one way of just extending your 6x6 papers to fill a longer section. Just plan to cover up any seams with a die cut or a stamped and cut image. So lots of different options there, and everything's going to look more or less seamless, even though it's not. So here I've actually chosen a smaller set of shaped dies because of the proportion of the card again. So I've got a smaller scallop circle and a smaller circle that I've nested right on top of that as well. So here I'm just trying out some different options for that inner circle, and often I don't like to use black even for my sentiments if I haven't used it anywhere else. And because these are printed images that I've cut out from the pattern paper, there isn't even a black outline on those images like you might find if you stamped and colored an image. But I found as I was making these cards that having that black strip of sentiment with the white heat embossed sentiment, it really pops, and it really works well in a way that I wouldn't have expected, because I just happened to pull out a bunch of these simple sentiments, which I think are great. Again, I want to make sure that the papers are the star of the card, and so I want to keep the sentiments really, really simple. And I was surprised that the black, to my eyes anyways, works better than I thought. And in a lot of cases, I think it works better than the opposite, where the sentiment is in black ink and the sentiment strip is white cardstock. So I'm gonna have to keep that in mind, because this just happened to be a happy accident. I just pulled out a bunch of these sentiments that I had already stamped and cut, and one of these black ones fell onto my card, and I thought it looked pretty good, and so I used it. So here's a recap of all 5 cards that I made. So you'll see when they are all side by side that they do share that similar look and feel of the card sketch that they were all based off of. So I've got, the first one was my USA 2 size, the second one was a mini slimline, which I make at 3.5 by 5.5. This third one here is a 5 by 5 card, and then next up will be my 5 by 7, which I've adapted the sketch so that it's actually a landscape orientation as opposed to a side folding. And then my final card is a slimline, which I've also used as a a top folding landscape, but I did change the orientation of the way that the pattern paper runs. So I hope that you enjoyed this look at how to take one card sketch and adapt it to different size cards. If you enjoyed this video, do consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And to all my subscribers, thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I hope that you will consider doing so. And if you ring that notification bell, you'll get notified whenever I post new videos to my channel. Thanks again, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.